Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tim,
I'm Joanne.
and you're watching Portal TV. This is our SyTech episode number 15. We have two really interesting stories for you today. Let me get over to my first story for you. And what I reported on my Portal TV Facebook page today is there's a brand spanking new, well, in an article in Extreme Tech Today, an engineer at Stanford University has created a DIY microscope called the Foldscope, and it's fashioned out of a single piece of printed and folded A4 paper, origami style. Now, this paper-based microscope is incredibly cheap to produce, less than $1, and yet still offers a very high magnification level, up to 2,100 times, that can be used to diagnose various strains of malaria and other diseases. Now, given that diagnosis currently requires a cumbersome optical microscope that costs hundreds or thousands of dollars, the Foldscope will revolutionize medicine, primarily in poorer countries, but also here in the West. Because of the cost of a diagnostic lab, and most small countries cannot afford such, they have to ship out blood samples to labs already backed up from their day-to-day work in other countries. Now, it can take months to find out what is ailing their citizenry, and sometimes, unfortunately, too late. Let me show you the second image here. Oops, let's get rid of the back one there real quick. Give me a second. Got too much information on the screen there. Okay, here we go. So, the optical light microscope, invented in the 1800s, has remained virtually unchanged in form and function for the past 200 years. The shape of the microscope is so recognizable and is designed so immutable that it has become the cliche totem of scientific endeavor. Now, there's an eyepiece, an objective lens, usually a few of them on a revolving turn, as you see in the picture here, a stage to hold the specimen or the slide, and a light source underneath that shines up at the stage. Now, as a kid, I had a microscope, and it was either a mirror to provide the light, or you could flip it over, and it would be a little regular light. So you could have either or. So the whole thing is usually very bulky, heavy, has many moving parts, and is thus quite expensive. Show you the next image. Manal Prakash, Stanford University's Manu Prakash, had the epiphany that a microscope is ultimately a very simple device, realized that he could strip away all the complexity and heft and still have a useful microscope. So enter the Foldscope. And as you can see here, this is an 8.5 by 11 Foldscope paper microscope that's out of simple cardstock, just like you would find for a filing card. Now, it has a simple spherical lens and an LED and watch battery. The battery parts fit on a single piece of A4 paper. A single Foldscope can be assembled in only 7 minutes, weighs less than 10 grams, and the total cost of the parts comes in at around $1. Drop it or stamp on it, and the Foldscope will keep on working. By using the higher power LED, the Foldscope can also be used as a projector. In fact, there's a TED Talk on this exact article. If you look at the article on our Facebook page, it links to the TED Talk, and you can see him actually employing that capability as a projector. It's very cool. A variety of lenses are available depending on the Foldscope's use and required magnification, but they generally take the form of a small 1 to 2 millimeter sapphire or borosilicate ball lens. Now, the strong magnification of a single spherical lens held close to the eye dates back to groundbreaking work in microbiology clear back in the 17th century. And the next image here. Okay, now this are actual photos using the Foldscope. By flexing and moving the Foldscope's tabs to focus on the specimen, magnification levels up to 2,100 times are possible, with the ability to resolve details that are smaller than 1 micron. Now, as you can see in the images captured through this Foldscope, it is easily capable of resolving most single-celled organisms, which are generally on the scale of 1 to 100 microns. This makes the Foldscope ideal for spotting the parasites and bacteria that cause diseases such as malaria and other afflictions that haunt poor countries that cannot afford a well-equipped medical lab. Now, the Foldscope is also an exciting innovation here at home. I would have loved to have had a 2100 magnification microscope when I was a kid. I did have one, but it was much lower magnification than that. Now imagine if kids at school were given the equipment to make a foldscope and then encouraged to examine everything in microscopic detail. They could see firsthand the bacteria in unpasteurized milk or the molecules of chlorophyll in a blade of grass. The foldscope could kickstart a whole new generation of kids that are interested in science and biology, and that can only be a very good thing. Now, the foldscope isn't ready yet commercially, but the research paper, which is also linked on our Facebook page, provides a detailed parts list and instructions on how to build one yourself. While the parts are cheap, the manufacturing process and science behind it is rather sophisticated. The produced version of the foldscope will have the lens actually embedded in the paper. Now you can watch the TED Talks from our website. And that's my story. What do you think, Joanne, to this?
Oh, geez, Tim, you're sounding really auto-tuned. Um, is everything okay?
Everything's fine.
Okay, because you sounded really auto-tuned for like the last 10 seconds or whatnot. And my video isn't loading. I'm not sure if it's my connection or not. I did a speed test earlier, so I don't know if it's Chrome, but yeah. Should I use Firefox to load, just in case?
Firefox, or you mean... Sure, go ahead if you want.
Okay, because our video isn't loading in Twitch.
Let me
All
double
right.
check it.
No. For me, it's not loading the video. So I'm wondering if it's a Chrome issue or not sure
No,
what.
we're live. We are live, so we're good. I have it open in Opera. Yeah, I would close Chrome because sometimes that takes up a lot of resources. So, yeah, then go ahead and open something else.
You want me to just leave Hangout for a bit?
No, you wouldn't want to do that because it might upset the entire video overlay for you.
Yeah, it's problematic. Okay, I might have to use then next time show I'll like do something different. But I'm just saying that like you were auto-tuned very frequently.
Okie doke.
Okay, it's back on. I don't know if it's Chrome's issue because I've been having some problems with Chrome recently, but alrighty, on to my story now. And just so you know, everyone, got that dual monitor setup going on, so I will be able to monitor chat a lot better since it's right next to my game screen. So let me get into my story. Tim, can you hear me just fine?
Yes, I can hear you. Great.
Okay. This story is quite interesting, actually. It's titled "Some Customers Aren't Sold on U.S. Transition to IP Networks," and basically, U.S. residents have written to the FCC to voice their concerns from moving from copper-based telephone networks to internet protocol, and what they're concerned about is the potential effects on health from mobile headset radiation and what happens if the electricity goes out and everything's out, right? And FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, agrees that mobile broadband networks being available during electrical outages is a hurdle in the transition, but they believe that, like, you know, we got to move forward, get everybody high-speed internet like as fast as possible. Because surprisingly, there are actually a lot of people who don't have access to internet. I think, I believe it was approximately 19 million Americans still lacking, well, the broadband technology, and I believe 100 million. That's a lot. I mean, it's percentage-wise, it's what maybe 10 or 12 or so percentage of the U.S. They have broadband or access to it, but they don't know about it or they don't subscribe to it. So that was a really interesting fact for me. And there was an article from AT&T published on March 18th of this year, and they're beginning to plan to shut down the old copper phone networks in place of the IP systems, such as fiber-based broadband, high-speed wireless. And they're going to basically make their trials on Carbon Hill, Alabama, I believe, and West Delray Beach, Florida. And even though they have the support of the federal regulators, there's still a lot of people who are like saying, well, if you decide to move forward onto this new IP system, then everyone else who's using legacy copper networks are going to be left behind. So what's going to happen? They're kind of forcing you to, I suppose, pay more to get better services and all that. But the reason why rural, like more rural, well, can't say that, but country like side areas, the reason why they also don't have broadband or access it even though it's available or whatnot is because of the cost. Really, it's just how much it costs and if it's worth it to them. Um, and it said that there are actually a lot of copper-based lines other than internet that are used, such as burglar alarms, emergency and fire alarm systems, and what else? FCC will monitor the trials. Um, and which is good. However, people are not sure that IP is going to be an adequate substitute for copper landlines, particularly in those rural areas. And I talked about how many people are not accessing it. Can you believe that? Once again, 100 million Americans do not use broadband, even though they have it available. Um, and let's see what else. And basically, if AT&T's existing services, well, since they still run on copper networks, if they decide to hop on over to the IP system, then it'll leave millions who use DSL without options. So that's kind of crappy. But what else? La, 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 la. And I suppose that is the story for the day. Why don't we go ahead and jump into gameplay?
That sounds like a winner. Why don't we? I'll go ahead and log out for just a moment, folks, as we switch over, and we'll be right back into World of Warcraft.